Since the dawn of history, before humanity knew the meaning of civilization, there was a land to which the river gave life and which, in turn, gave humanity immortality. Here, on the banks of this great artery, the Nile, Egypt was not merely a place on a map. It was an idea of how nature and humankind could harmonize to create the greatest and most mysterious civilization of all time. Studying pharaonic civilization is not just a journey into the world of archaeology and carved stone. It is a journey into the depths of the human soul, into an exceptional human legacy that challenged time itself. The ancient Egyptians understood early on that immortality belonged not to the body, but to achievement, thought, and belief. They built their kingdom not only on the shifting sands of politics and power, but on solid foundations of science, art, and religion, making their legacy a torch that illuminated the paths of subsequent civilizations, from the Greeks to the Romans, right up to our modern world. The goal of delving into this heritage is to understand this unique human genius and to draw lessons from a people who, through their faith and knowledge, managed to turn the river's course into a lifeline, the barren desert into eternal tombs for gods and kings, and mortal humans into beings aspiring to eternity. The goal of delving into this heritage is to understand this unique human genius and to draw lessons from a people who, through their faith and knowledge, managed to turn the river's course into a lifeline, the barren desert into eternal tombs for gods and kings, and mortal humans into beings aspiring to eternity. More than 7,000 years ago, the story began on the banks of the Nile. The land was fertile, nature generous, but also harsh. The first communities that settled here were communities of hunters and gatherers, but they soon discovered the secret of this river, its regular floods, which left behind black silt that endowed the land with inexhaustible fertility. From this revolutionary discovery, agriculture was born. Humans were no longer slaves to hunting and wandering. They became masters of the land. The ancient Egyptians learned to tame the river, digging the first canals and building the first dams, organizing irrigation in a way that amazed those who came after them. With agriculture came settlement. Villages flourished, and tools evolved from stone and flint to copper and bronze. This stability was the cornerstone of the first ruling dynasties. With the emergence of the first and second dynasties, around 3100 BC, the features of a unified state began to appear. Before that, Egypt was divided into two kingdoms: the northern, Delta, with its red crown, and the southern, Upper Egypt, with its white crown. Legends tell us of King Menes, or Nama, who unified the two kingdoms and wore the double crown, symbolizing his authority over the lands of the north and the south. This unification was the moment of birth for the Egyptian nation, with all its unique identity. From the beginning, the Egyptian mindset had a deeply philosophical tendency. They tried to understand the origin of the universe through creation myths. In the city of Heliopolis, they believed that the god Atum created himself from the womb of the primordial waters, Nun, and then in turn created the gods Shu and Tefnut, beginning the sequence of creation. In Memphis, the god Ptah played the pivotal role, creating the world through the power of thought and speech. These myths were not mere stories. They were a complete philosophical system, explaining their existence and their relationship with the cosmos. At the heart of this civilization stood a single person who combined earthly power and heavenly authority, the pharaoh. The pharaoh was not just a king or a ruler. He was the living embodiment of the god Horus on earth, the mediator between the gods and humans. This doctrine was the foundation of the stability of Egyptian society for thousands of years. Obedience to the pharaoh wasn't merely a duty, but a religious act. History has recorded for us the names of pharaohs who became legends in their own right. Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure, builders of the Great Pyramids at Giza, who turned stone into timeless monuments. Hatshepsut, the woman who ruled with great prowess, wore men's clothing and a false beard, and sent trade expeditions to the land of Punt. Thutmose III, the brilliant military leader who expanded the borders of the Egyptian empire to their greatest extent. And Akhenaten, the heretic and reformer who tried to shatter the multitude of gods and called for the worship of a single god, Aten, the sun disk. The greatness of the pharaohs was manifested through their immortal architectural works. The pyramids were, above all, tombs, but they were also a political and religious statement. Building a pyramid like Khufu's, which remained the tallest structure in the world for nearly 3,800 years, would not have been possible without absolute authority, capable of mobilizing tens of thousands of workers and craftsmen in the service of the idea of eternity. As for the temples, like those of Karnak and Luxor, they were cities of the gods, where priests performed daily rituals on behalf of the pharaoh to ensure the continuity of the cosmic order, Ma'at. This brings us to the role of the priests, who were essential partners in cementing the pharaoh's power. They were the most knowledgeable, wealthy, and influential class in society. They managed the vast estates of the gods, possessed the knowledge of reading and writing, and controlled the complex religious rituals. The alliance between the palace and the temple was the backbone of the governance system in pharaonic Egypt, where religion was the most effective tool of power. Behind the stone monuments and golden thrones lived the people of Egypt, with their simple daily concerns, joys, and sorrows. Their lives were in harmony with the rhythm of the Nile and the seasons. Their diet was based primarily on bread and beer, which were prepared at home. In addition, they ate fish from the Nile, duck and poultry, and fruits like figs and pomegranates, and vegetables such as garlic and onions. In clothing, the Egyptians preferred clean white linen garments, suitable for their hot climate. Men wore a shendit, a short kilt, while women wore a long, tight dress. Scarabs, necklaces, and bracelets were common adornments for both sexes. The family was the basic building block of society. Marriage was more of a civil agreement than a religious ritual, and Egyptian women held a respected status not seen in many ancient civilizations. They could own and manage property, appear in court, and inherit. Education was a privilege mostly reserved for the sons of nobles and scribes, where they learned the complex scripts, hieroglyphic and demotic, and arithmetic. In the field of health, the ancient Egyptians developed remarkably advanced medicine. They understood human anatomy through the process of mummification, and papyri like the Ebers and Kahun indicate their knowledge of diagnosing and treating many diseases. They used herbs and honey in treatments, and were skilled in bone surgery and dentistry. As for entertainment, the Egyptians were enthusiasts of music and dance at festivals. They hunted birds and fished in the delta marshes. Board games like Senet, which resembles backgammon, were a popular form of home entertainment. Religious holidays and agricultural seasons were occasions for collective celebration, where everyone gathered in shared joy. Without scientific and intellectual progress, these architectural monuments would not have been built, nor would this civilization have lasted for 3,000 years. For the Egyptians, science was a practical means to solve the problems of daily life and serve religion and the state. In the field of medicine, the ancient Egyptians reached a very advanced level. The Edwin Smith Papyrus indicates their knowledge of many surgical procedures and their detailed descriptions of injuries and their treatments. They knew how to suture wounds, set fractures, and treat diseases with herbs. Dentists were skilled at filling teeth with gold. In mathematics and geometry, their knowledge was essential for surveying land after each flood, and for designing and building temples and pyramids. They developed a decimal system, understood fractions, and solved simple algebraic equations. They developed formulas for calculating areas and volumes, and were familiar with the principles of plane geometry. Perhaps their most influential achievement on subsequent civilizations was in astronomy. They observed the stars and planets and divided the sky into constellations. But their greatest contribution was the establishment of the solar calendar, which divided the year into 365 days, subdivided into 12 months of 30 days each, with an additional 5 epagomenal days at the end. This calendar was remarkably accurate and is the foundation upon which the Julian and then the Gregorian calendar we use today were built. This scientific knowledge was not exclusive to Egypt. It was transmitted through trade and conquest to the Greeks, who were amazed by Egyptian wisdom and acknowledged their debt to the Egyptians in fields such as geometry and medicine.